So one of the things I find funny, obviously people know I have a Gab account, and obviously Gab is infested with people that consider themselves Republican, consider themselves conservative, and they are Republicans, I would say. I would guarantee you they're registered Republican, but they're not conservative. But what I wanted to point out was what's interesting to me, and I'm not, like, people probably have picked this up from me. I'm not a believer in the Republican Party. I am a believer in Americanism. I've always been technologically and economically progressive for the most part. Although economically, I did used to believe in limited government, but I believed in local progressive government, if you know what I mean, like the use of sort of like communal government, communitarianism at the local level. I was a believer in. I didn't believe in the federal government having overreach, and I was a big believer in states' rights, which I still am a believer in states' rights as per the Constitution recommends, but that's where I stop. I also believe in a strong central government, very strong central government, and we need a strong central government to hold the state and local governments accountable. I've changed a little bit of my views over the years simply by what I've seen in the political circus of this country. It's turned me more and more and more and more into a federalist, more and more and more and more into a Roosevelt progressive as opposed to a limited government conservative. And the behavior of Republicans has always been abominable. Okay, it really has. Like, what's funny is they point the fingers at the Democrats, okay? And they say that the Democrats do this and the Democrats do that. My favorite is the Democrats are the real racists. Well, the Democratic Party started as a racist party, okay? The Republican Party started as a party for the interests of Black Americans, okay? And as you will see, now the Democrats have changed over the years, adopting big tent politics and things like that. But this is typical Republican behavior, like you'll see. So Maricopa County Community Court District Governing Board candidate arrested, accused of public indecency. Now, where did this indecency take place? Well, Randy Kaufman announced his campaign suspension on Tuesday after news broke that he had been arrested earlier in October, after a police officer said he found him masturbating in his vehicle at a public parking lot. According to a police report, Kaufman was in his parked Ford F-150 truck in the east parking lot of Rio Salado College in Surprise on October 4th at about 4:40 p.m. Now, yeah, it's community college, but you're going to find something out about that. So, a Maricopa County Community College District police officer noticed the truck was parked over 3 spaces and drove over for a closer look. The police reports say the officer parked their vehicle about 20 feet away from the truck's passenger side and walked up to the truck where he noticed a man with his pants down to mid-knee masturbating while looking at a cell phone. The officer noted in the report that Kaufman didn't notice him, but the officer saw a bicyclist and preschool children near Wurtzy's preschool. So this was near a preschool and child care center in clear view from the parking lot. The officer then moved to the driver's side as Kaufman noticed the officer and hurriedly covered himself with a cloth. The police report states Kaufman rolled down his window and the officer said seriously and told him to pull his pants up and exit the vehicle. And he said, I'm sorry, is what Kaufman replied according to the report. I effed up. I'm really stressed. Kaufman said he hadn't noticed the officer until he walked up to the driver's side door and admitted he was masturbating while watching pornography on his phone. Why would you do that here? The officer asked, according to the report. I saw a guy on a bike pass by you. If I could see you, Don't you think other people could? Cars were passing by you in the lot. The police report said Kaufman replied that he only realized that later. I'm just really stressed out, Kaufman said. I have a lot of things going on. Kaufman told the officer masturbating in public wasn't something he normally did. He said masturbating in public wasn't something he normally did. The officer asked Kaufman to look around and describe the nearby area, to which Kaufman said he noticed the child care center, but only after the officer had confronted him. Don't you see how alarming that is, the officer said, that there are children nearby, people passing on bikes and in cars where they could see, where they could look and see that what you are doing, Kaufman repeated, that he had fucked up. Okay, so that's just one. That's Randy Kaufman, I think his name is. Let's see, is that Randy Kaufman? I want to get his name right. I don't want to... Yeah, this is Randy Kaufman of Maricopa County in Arizona. Now, this was an incident that took place a bunch of years ago, in 2017, and I found out about it because it was reported by Rush Limbaugh, actually. I was a fan of Rush Limbaugh until the Trump administration, where he just became kind of like a Trump yes man for whatever reason. Which was unlike Rush. Rush had called out the Bush administration. Rush was personal friends with the Bush family as far as I knew, and he called out the Bush administration, which I thought was commendable of him on a number of issues. With Trump, the only thing he called Trump out on was Trump's desire to pass red flag laws to illegally confiscate people's guns. So this gentleman is an Oklahoma Republican state senator. His name was Ralph Shorty. He was 35 at the time, was charged with 3 felony counts, including engaging in child prostitution. Court documents filed in Cleveland County showed Shorty, who has served since 2010, has not spoken to media about the incident. According to an affidavit, police found Shorty and a 17-year-old boy who was not named in a motel room. Now, remember, this is a Republican. I want to make sure people understand that. This isn't Barney Frank doing this. Okay, from South Oklahoma City on March 9th, officers present observed a strong odor of marijuana coming from the room, and inside the room, at the time of their contact with the defendant, the affidavit said, adding the officers also found an open box of condoms in the defendant's backpack. Okay, according to court records, Shorty was, his name's Ralph Shorty. Shorty was booked at a local jail on Thursday afternoon. His bond was set at $100,000, and local media said he was released about two after he surrendered. Oklahoma politicians from both major parties called for Shorty to resign, including Republican Governor Mary Fallin. The charges against him do not reflect the character and decorum that we expect of an elected official, Fallin said in a statement. Nah, really? A guns rights advocate who has taken a hard-line stance against abortion, Shorty was sanctioned by the Republican-dominated state Senate on Wednesday on a 43-0 vote for disorderly behavior. These sanctions imposed penalties such as stripping him of his office space, removing him from committee positions, and canceling his reserved parking space. So this is about an Idaho conservative Republican, so this is about the, Republican conference, about the arrest. So he got caught with a lot lizard, okay? The nature of the alleged activity has been categorized by some as cottaging. According to the police report, the police officer sat in a bathroom stall at part of an undercover operation investigating complaints of sexual activity in the restroom. After about 13 minutes of sitting in the stall, the police officer observed Craig lingering outside and frequently peeking through the crack of the door on the stall. then entered the stall to the left of the officer's stall. The police officer made the following observations, which he recorded in his report. At 12:16 hours, meaning at noon, 16 past noon, Craig tapped his right foot. I recognize this as a signal used by persons wishing to engage in lewd conduct. Craig tapped his toes several times and moved his foot closer to my foot. The presence of others did not seem to deter Craig as he moved his foot so that it touched the side of my left foot. This is what the officer is saying, which was within my stall area. So this was within his stall. It's not like it was an accident. I mean, people have been in bathroom stalls before. Craig then proceeded to swipe his left hand under the stall divider several times with the palm of his hand facing upward. According to the incident report and criminal complaint filed in court, the officer showed Craig his police identification beneath the partition separating their stalls, and the officer then pointed his finger toward the restroom exit. Craig initially said no, but he ultimately complied with the officer's request to leave the restroom. After Craig and the officer left the restroom, Craig was reluctant to go with the officer and demanded the officer show his police identification a second time. Once the officer complied with the request, Craig, the arresting officer, and the police detective who was stationed outside the bathroom or the restroom went to the airport police station. After the arresting officer read Craig his Miranda rights, the officer interviewed Craig about the restroom incident. At one point, Craig handed his business card to the arresting officer, which identified him as a U.S. Senator, and said to him, "What do you think about that?" Craig told the officer that he was worried about missing his flight, and the arresting officer asked the police detective to call the airplane to hold the flight. The detective reported that no one answered the telephone for the airline, and the arresting officer proceeded with the interview. According to the arrest report prepared by Sergeant Dave Carcinia, Craig stated, "He has a wide stance when going to the bathroom, and that his foot may have touched his." Craig never used the term wide stance himself. According to the transcript of the police interrogation, Sergeant Carcinia asked, "Did you do anything with your feet?" And Craig replied, "Positioned them, I don't know. I don't know at the time. I'm a fairly wide guy," he said. Okay, when the officer asked Craig about the use of his hands, Craig said that he reached down with his hand to pick up a piece of paper that was on the floor. The officer disputed Craig's version by saying there was not a piece of paper on the bathroom floor, nor did Craig pick up a piece of paper. Craig also disputed the officer's assertion about the position of his hand, claiming that his right palm was face down as he picked up the paper on the floor. The officer disputed Craig. Think about that, though. He's still, even if that was true, he's reaching into another man's bathroom stall. The officer disputed Craig's version, alleging that Craig used his left hand because his thumb was positioned in a forward motion. Okay, Craig returned to the airport on June 22nd to complain about how he had been treated by the police. According to the police report about Craig's return, Craig said he wanted information from his lawyer. Craig pleaded guilty, to a misdemeanor charge of disorderly conduct by signing and mailing a plea petition dated August 1st, 2007. Okay, he paid $575, including fines and fees. Senator Craig signed the petition to enter his guilty plea, which contained the provisions, "I understand the court will not accept a plea of guilty from anyone who claims to be innocent. I now make no claim that I am innocent," he said. Okay, allegations about prior conduct become public. Said this is about gay rights activist Michael Rogers reported on sexual liaisons between Greg, it's Craig, and unnamed individuals in Washington, D.C.'s Union Station. Rogers uncovered a news story from 1982 that tied Craig to a sex and drug scandal. Rogers reported on more recent activity in various places throughout the nation. Rogers' report prompted Craig to issue a denial. Okay, the Idaho Statesman published, blah, blah, blah. You see what I'm saying? So this is another, okay, wait. According to, okay, the last reported incident to the Idaho Statesman about Craig's conduct came from a 40-year-old man who with close ties to Republican officials. So this is a man with close ties to Republican officials. According to the man's story about the encounter with Craig, the man reported having oral sex with Craig at Washington's Union Station, probably in 2004. A reporter for the Idaho Statesman interviewed Craig on August 28, 2007, regarding the allegations about his conduct, and in response to the reporter's questions, Craig said, "I'm not gay and I don't cruise and don't hit on men. I don't go around anywhere hitting on men, and by God, if I did, I wouldn't do it in Boise, Idaho, Jiminy." That's what he said. Okay, responses to arrest. Craig told the public that the officer misconstrued his actions. He did plead guilty. He said, "I am not gay. I have never been gay." Apparently, he acts pretty gay. In June, he overreacted and made a poor decision. He chose to plead guilty to a lesser charge in hopes of making it go away. I doubt that. "Please let me apologize," he said, "to my family, friends, and staff, and fellow Indianans." Fellow Idahoans, for the cloud placed over Idaho. "I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport," he said. Okay. Craig's arrest provoked a small flurry of attention to that earlier scandal, and it was suggested that Craig had absorbed a lesson from it. Sexual misconduct, or even the mere perception that one is gay, could ruin a man's reputation, but steadfast, straight-in-the-eye denial just might get him off the hook. Craig claimed that his state of mind was troubled at the time of the guilty plea because he and his family had been relentlessly and viciously harassed by the Idaho Statesman. In the course of its investigation into allegations of Craig's homosexuality on August 30th, the Statesman called for Craig's resignation. In response to questions about the arrest, the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport Department released an audio tape of Craig's interview with Sergeant Dave Carcenia, the arresting officer. In that interview, Craig denied wrongdoing and claimed that he was a victim of entrapment. So how do you entrap a heterosexual man into committing acts of homosexual proposition? Craig was one of 2 Senate liaisons for Mitt Romney's 2008 presidential campaign, but removed himself from that campaign role after the conviction became public. Romney said of Craig, "He's disappointed the American people." Craig later expressed bitterness about Romney's handling of the incident, saying in an interview with Matt Lauer and Romney, "Not only threw me under his campaign bus, he backed up and ran over me again." Well, maybe you shouldn't be doing gay things in bathrooms. That's all I'm saying. If you want to be representing a Republican presidential candidate like Mitt Romney, you might not want, and a heavily religious one at that, you might not want to be doing gay stuff in public bathrooms. A Washington watchdog group, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, filed a complaint with the Senate Ethics Committee requesting an investigation into whether Craig violated Senate rules of conduct. Members of the Republican Party in Congress began calling for Craig to resign, including Representative Pete Senator John McCain, Senator Norm Coleman, and Senator John Ensign. Coleman and Senator Susan Collins announced that they would donate campaign contributions received from Craig's Political Action Committee to charity. Senator Patrick Leahy and sitting chair of the Judiciary Committee criticized the Republicans for holding to a double standard, for not having called likewise for the resignation of Senator David Vitter, accused in a call girl scandal. Yeah, that's a call girl scandal. That's the difference. Okay. Senator Arlen Specter, then Republican, encouraged Craig to fight to withdraw his guilty plea. Arlen Specter would go back and forth. He's a weird dude. But I'm going to move on now. I don't know who remembers the Ted Haggart incident. Ted Haggart was a very, very bizarre very bizarre person that was caught up in a sexual scandal. So Haggart made national headlines in November of 2006 when male prostitute and masseur Mike Jones alleged that Haggart had advocated against the legalization of same-sex marriage, had paid him for sex for 3 years, and had also purchased and used crystal methamphetamine. Haggart resigned his post at New Life Church and his other leadership roles shortly after the allegations became public. Later, Haggart admitted to drug use, some sexual activity with Jones, and an inappropriate relationship with a young man who attended New Life Church. In 2010, Haggart and his wife Gail founded St. James Church in Colorado Springs. As of September 2018, Haggart continues to serve as founding pastor at St. James Church. So we talked about a lot of the homosexuality in the Republican Party. Let's talk about some of the inappropriateness of Trump with women. So in the early 80s, Jessica Leeds, before Trump had his own fleet of private planes, he flew commercial, and on one trip he allegedly groped and made unwanted advances to then 38-year-old businesswoman Jessica Leeds. Leeds, who sat in first class next to Trump, recalls that after they finished their meal, he lifted up the armrest and began groping her. He was like an octopus, she told the New York Times. His hands were everywhere. It was an assault. Leeds relocated seats instead of speaking up, as the cultural attitude in those days towards sexual assault placed blame on victims. We accepted for years, Leeds said, of similar unwanted advances. We were taught it was our fault. Ivana Trump in 1989. Ivana Trump was divorcing Donald Trump. His former wife detailed a gruesome, quote, rape scene in a disposition that was later cherry-picked for reporter Harry Hertz III's 1993 book, Lost Tycoon, The Many Lives of Donald J. Trump. The alleged incident occurred after Trump was upset about the results of a scalp reduction surgery to remove a bald spot that was done by his wife's plastic surgeon. He said, "Your effing doctor has ruined me," he allegedly said before ripping out fistfuls of Ivana's hair, stripping her clothes, and unzipping his pants. Then he jammed, okay, I'm not going to read that. You can read that for yourself. Ivana is terrified. It is a violent assault. Hurt writes. Early 1990s, Kristen Anderson. Like Leeds, Kristen Anderson shared a similar story about being groped while sitting next to Trump when Anderson was at a Manhattan nightclub in the early 90s. She recalls Trump groping her on the side, on the sly, like you're some kind of stuffed animal on the couch. Anderson told the Washington Post that Trump slid his fingers under her miniskirt and underwear without her consent. It wasn't a sexual come-on. I don't know why he did it. It was like just to prove that he could do it, and nothing would happen. She said there was zero conversation. We didn't even really know. We didn't even look at each other. It was very random, very nonchalant on his part. It's a sexual assault issue, and it's something that I've kept quiet on my own, Anderson said, and I've always kept quiet. And why should I keep quiet? Actually, all of the women should speak up. 1992, a 10-year-old girl. Another damaging Trump video that emerged during the 2016 election cycle is a 1992 segment from Entertainment Tonight in which Trump made sexually suggestive remarks about a 10-year-old girl. Yes, really. Okay. 1992, 14-year-old girls. Okay. Two 14-year-old girls. The same year, Trump made similar remarks to two 14-year-old girls as the Chicago Tribune reported, linking to an archive story in its entertainment and gossip column. The Wire report stated the incident occurred when Trump visited a youth choir outside of the Plaza Hotel. He asked two girls how old they were. It reads, after they replied that they were 14, Trump said, "Wow, I just think in a couple of years I'll be dating you." 1993, Vendela Kurzbaum, when Vanity Fair editor Graydon Carter invited Trump to the 1993 White House Correspondents' Dinner, it turned out that to be a nightmare. Trump was seated next to Swedish model Vendela Kurzbaum and harassed her all evening, to the point that she apparently asked to be moved. After 45 minutes, she came over to my table, almost in tears, and pleaded with me to move her, recalls Carter. It seems that Trump had spent his entire time with her saying the tits and legs of the other female guests, and asking how they measured up to those of other women, including his wife. He is, she told me, in words that seemed familiar, the most vulgar man I have ever met. Jill Harth, in 1993, that same year, Trump also allegedly subjected makeup artist Jill Harth to a steady string of sexual assaults. As The Guardian reports, he allegedly groped her under a dinner table at the Plaza Hotel's Oak Room, and later he allegedly pinned her against a wall in one of his children's bedrooms and groped her. He pushed me up against the wall and had his hands all over me and tried to get up my dress again. That's what Harth said. In 1994, a 13-year-old girl, Trump had been accused of raping a 13-year-old girl in the apartment of convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Now, keep that in mind. Trump had been accused of raping a 13-year-old girl in the apartment of convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The case, which was recently filed for the third time in New York City, where the alleged rape occurred, consists of two affidavits filed by Joan Doe and Tiffany Doe, which corroborate the victim's story, as BuzzFeed reported. Joan says she was told about the assault after it happened, while Tiffany, who was apparently hired as a recruiter to bring young girls to Epstein's apartment, alleges Trump and Epstein raped the victim more than once. Trump's attorney has denied these accusations, but this is from 1994. 1995 or 1996, Eugene Carroll, the advice columnist from in June, that in 1995 or 1996, Trump allegedly raped her in the dressing room at Bergdorf. Carroll wrote that Trump asked her for advice buying a gift for a girl, which led him to asking her to try on a piece of lingerie. According to her account, the moment the dressing room is closed, he lunges at me, pushes me against the wall, hitting my head quite badly, and puts his mouth against my lips, Carroll alleged. 1996, 5 or 6 models. Lisa Boyne, a health food business entrepreneur who apparently shared a dinner from hell with Trump, told the Huffington Post that she and a friend, along with 5 or 6 models, were seated at a semicircular table with Trump in 1996. When the models wanted to get up to leave, Trump refused to get up to let them do so, instead forcing them to walk on top of the table, where he stuck his head right underneath their skirts. Alicia Mercado, while Trump's behavior towards former Miss Universe winner Alicia Mercado wasn't physically sexual, it was the definition of predatory and verbally abusive behavior. He was very overwhelming. I was scared of him. He'd yell at me all of the time, says Mercado. In a video clip executed by Hillary Clinton's campaign, he'd tell me, "You look ugly," or "You look fat." Sometimes he'd play with me and say, "Hello, Miss Piggy," "Hello, Miss Housekeeping." Trump also body-shamed Mercado when she gained 40 pounds after winning her title. Okay.